Today we're going to be doing this hyper-realistic apple in Polychromos colored pencils on Strathmore 400 series Bristol smooth paper. For those of you who don't know me or are new here, my name is Michelle Moreus and I make art tutorials that are fun, easy, and accessible for everyone. So you want to start out with a really good sketch. In this case, it's a pretty simple sketch because it's pretty much just the outline of the apple, and then I put in where my shadows are going to be and my bright highlights. I've sharpened all my pencils ahead of time, and I've picked out all my colors that I think are in my reference image, and I've swatched them out on a piece of paper next to me. And this way, when I go to grab a color that I'm looking for, I can easily see what that color is going to look like before it goes down on the paper, because I've already swatched that out. Another reason why you want to use sharp color pencils is because you want to control the pressure and you want to work in light layers. Colored pencil really works best when it's layer on top of layer, and you get a much richer look to your finished drawing when you layer multiple colors. It's just going to add a vibrance and a beauty to it that you're not going to get if you just go in and you put that one color down. If you'd like to do this project with me today, you can find the reference image and the sketch on my community page on my channel. So go to that community page and you can just screenshot it and you can draw right along with me as we go along. If you want full-length tutorials, you can head over to my Patreon page where I give you the sketch, the reference image, the materials list, and you can draw in real time with me from start to finish. Check out that Patreon page. The link is in the description below, and I look forward to seeing you there. Now, as I'm going in with each color, I'm going in the contour of the apple. So my lines, or the direction of my lines, are going in the contour of that apple. So you can see where the striations in the apple skin is, and I'm going in that direction when I'm putting down all of my pencils. The reason for this is that can show through, and if you're just going in every which way direction, it's not going to look as realistic, and you won't get these markings going in the right direction. So because we're going to layer, you can, just keep going over things, but it is much more helpful to go in the contour. So you want to go over those bumps and make your lines go over those bumps as well. And this will give you a much more believable finished product when you're done. And it's kind of like when you do fur on an animal, you want to always go in the direction of the fur. Same thing with this. We're going to go in the direction of the marks on the skin of the apple. So as you can see in the reference image, there are some really dark shadows on this apple. So instead of using black or pure black, I'm mixing in some navy blue. And the reason for this is when you use a lot of black in a drawing and you don't mix it with other colors, it can tend to look really flat or dull. So I'm going in with this kind of navy blue Polychromos pencil, and I'm just trying to deepen up where those deep dark shadows are, and to give us kind of a roadmap of where we're going as we build up these layers. We're also going to mix some red in with that navy blue, and at the end, if we feel we need to pop it even more, we might add a little bit of black, but I really prefer to use the other colors to get that deep dark tone. It just looks a lot richer when you're done. You can check out my color theory video. I'll leave a link to it in the card above. And the reason for this is because with anything that you do, if you want to darken something up, if you use the color that's kind of directly across from it on the color wheel, you'll be able to deepen that up and still stay true to your coloring without using black. So I'll leave that card above and you can check that video out. So we're really going in now, and we're on our multiple layers here. I left the brightest highlights pure. You can always pop them again with a jelly roll pen in the end or an acrylic paint marker, but I do like to kind of keep those pure from the beginning, and it's a lot easier to just go around those real whites than to have to try to go over a bright area when you've put down color pencil underneath it. So if you go in light layers, you'll still be able to pick some things out with an electric eraser or a kneaded eraser or a stick eraser. So if you want to pop that highlight a little more, you can erase it. If you're going in with too much pressure, it's going to be more difficult to pull out your mistakes as you go along. So now we are adding a little bit of black, but we are gonna glaze some red in there and use a little bit more of that navy blue. So as we go along, we're gonna add some gray to desaturate the bottom part of the apple where there's, I guess it would be called a highlight, where I'm putting that white in, but it's not a pure white. And the red of the apple, we're going to add on the bottom part a little bit of gray to desaturate the color, because I know it's hard to see in this tiny little picture that I have in the corner, but if you go to that community page, you'll see the actual reference photo, and you'll see that the bottom part of the apple is not real red. It's kind of desaturated, and we're going to do that with our gray pencil in a moment. You can start to see that the really rich red of the apple color that we've achieved now by going in with all these different layers of pencil. I'm putting in some purple now over that black, and purple and red are close to each other on the color wheel, and this way it's not really changing our hue. It's not changing our color that much. It's just deepening and enriching that red with that purple. So just don't be afraid to try things. If you know a little bit about color theory, then you can kind of practice some of that on some of these simple projects like this apple. I'm going in with a colorless blender just to kind of smush those colors a little bit more together. I don't prefer this method, and I'm not putting a lot of pressure on the colorless blender. I just kind of needed to squish those colors together a little bit before I put the gray down there. And then I'm going to go in with a little bit of OMS, which is odorless mineral spirits, and you're going to see how bright everything gets. It just really super saturates the color and makes everything a lot more vibrant and beautiful, and you'll see that in a moment. Still going in with that purple. So as we go along, you'll see that we really start to get some form going and some three-dimensional aspects of the apple itself. So we're going in now with the gray to desaturate that highlight on the bottom, and we're just going to keep adding. I use a little brush to brush away the color pencil crumbs, which can get all over the paper as you increase the pressure a little bit on your final layers, and I tend to drag my hand around it. If you're doing this at home, you probably want to put a glassine sheet, a piece of tracing paper, or just a piece of cheap copy paper down underneath your hand as you're working so that you're not dragging that color pencil around. But if you don't have that available, you can just keep going in with your brush and then a kneaded eraser to kind of clean things up every now and again, so all that dust isn't settling down on the paper and kind of ruining your background. So I like to use reference images that have a real high contrast and have some good highlights and some nice shadows. I'm going in here with some graphite, and I'm using a sponge to mush that graphite around, and a little brush just to give us a shadow, which really grounds the apple to the surface that it's sitting on, and it gives it much more of a 3D effect and makes it much more hyper realistic. I use the sponge to kind of soften the shadow a little bit, and I prefer this method over using the color pencil. I may go over with a little bit of gray color pencil toward the end, but I think it gives it a much softer kind of look for the shadow to use that graphite, and it's a little easier to manipulate than if you go ahead and put down like a solid color pencil. I really love the Polychromos color pencils. They have a beautiful shine to them. There's no wax bloom like the Prismacolors. Prismacolor has beautiful vibrant colors, but the wax bloom at the end really kind of ruins it for me, where you don't get that with these oil-based Polychromos color pencils. By wax bloom, I mean after your drawing sits a little bit, the wax kind of comes to the surface and your drawings can look really dull and cloudy. That's also the reason why you should photograph everything or scan everything into your computer, so you have your original before that wax bloom happens, but you're not going to get that wax bloom with the Polychromos color pencils. So I really love the way they blend, and I love the permanence of them and the vibrance, that the drawing really will look the same after many, many months, whereas the Prismacolors don't really look as good later on down the road. So just be careful with that. I still use my Prismacolors, but it just depends on the project, whether I'm going to use Polychromos or Prismas. So we're going in, we're just deepening all those shadows, and we're going to go in a little bit with our OMS. I'm still adding a little bit of gray into that shadow part, and we're putting the OMS down now, and you can see how it punches that color up. It just really makes a vibrant, beautiful blended finish. So if you haven't tried OMS, I'll do a video on how to use it. You can watch my blending color pencil video, which I'll link above, and that goes a little bit into how to use OMS, but I'll do another video soon on doing a project and using the OMS. You want to make sure that when you're using that you have a piece of paper towel next to you so that you can kind of dab off. You don't want to use too much OMS. A little bit goes a long way, and you want to make sure that if you're going into the really dark areas, that you're going only into those areas, because it will transfer over to your brighter areas. So if you want to start with the lighter areas and then move into the dark, that's your better bet. But you can always just go ahead and in between each little section that you use that solvent, just wipe the brush off on that paper towel. Now you can see I'm going in with my electric eraser, and I just picked out a little bit of that stem there, and I could still pick that out because I've gone in light layers. So I'm just kind of adding a little bit of detail into the end of that stem there, and I used my electric eraser just to kind of pick out a few little texture areas in there, and it makes it look a lot more realistic. So I'm going back in now with my white color pencil just to pop that bright highlight. And then we'll probably go in with some more gray as well, to just kind of desaturate that bottom half where the shadow or the highlight is on the apple. So we're going to give it a nice little coat with some Payne's Gray and just kind of tone it down a little bit, so that we are making a nice cohesive look and giving that roundness to the apple. So there are a few little yellow dots all over this apple, which if you kind of screenshot the actual reference image, you'll see. And I just picked those out with an electric eraser, and I'm adding in a little bit of a golden color pencil to those little spots. I know it's hard to tell on the video, but they are there, and you'll see at the end when the finished product gets blown up, you'll see the little details of those spots in the drawing. So now we're just going to check back with our reference image, and we're going to just make sure that our values are all correct. If we need to deepen something up or we need to brighten something, I'm going back into my shadow and adding a little more depth to that shadow in the part closest to the apple. And we're just kind of giving everything a good once over and cleaning everything up. If you've enjoyed today's video, I would love it if you guys would smash that like button. Please consider subscribing to my channel. I work really hard at doing these tutorials, and I love doing them for you. Please leave me a comment below if you'd like to see me cover a specific medium, or if you'd just like to see me do a certain project. I love hearing from you guys. It makes me feel closer to you, and I would love to get back to you. I do get back to each and every one of you. So smash that like button, subscribe, and leave me a comment. I really appreciate it. And I will see you on the next video. Happy art.